akin to throwing sand into the ocean. And we know that it's not. We know it's a tangible investment that returns dividends to the city. And I would also suggest that we believe that the larger the investment, the larger the return.
Do you have plans for getting that message into the national press? I understand that every orchestra needs to work with their local press and their board and their staff to work for that message to be understood by the local community. But what about trying to get a national presence about that? Have you talked to the league about possibly having them pick up that message and work with you on it? And how about the New York Times?
Sure. We're always looking for partners for the arts advocacy that we seek to do to spread this positive message. And one of the most exciting relationships we're building is with the Americans for the Arts that I mentioned earlier. They're one of the organizations that are truly doing a national arts advocacy campaign, which is something that we've always sought. You may have seen some of their ads.
Mm-hmm.
They're in the glossy magazines like Time Magazine and Newsweek. Their theme is Art, Ask for More. And there'll be an example of, they'll say that arts education is being cut in schools, and there'll be a picture of Martha Graham, and it'll say, no wonder so many people think Martha Graham is a snack cracker. You know, there's clever ads that really grab the attention. They've also recently started PSAs for radio spots, and there are some incredibly funny and clever television ads that will be out there soon that we were privileged to see at the ICSOM conference. So we want to build that relationship. We want to build the relationship with the Music Critics Association of North America, and basically anyone who will help us spread the positive message of what orchestras can accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we were looking to work with.
I'm going to shift gears a little bit and ask you to take a look back. You're the 10th chair of ICSOM, and ICSOM is celebrating its 45th year?
It's 1946.
46th year. Julie Ayer of the Minnesota Orchestra has written a history of the labor movement, which is really basically a history of ICSOM, labor movement of symphony musicians. And we've excerpted several chapters of her book on polyphonic. If you want to take a look at that, I highly recommend it. But as a living chair, I'm just wondering what your thoughts have been as you travel the country and lead the ICSOM conferences in the summer, and as you say, you're going back and rereading Senza Sordino for the last 50 years, or 46 years. What are your thoughts about how ICSOM has changed the situation of being a symphonic player in America? I mean, the conditions that symphonic players worked under back in the early 60s are pretty shocking to a new person today. It would be sort of draconianly inconceivable as to what people had to put up with in terms of trying to get a bathroom break on the bus and things like that as they were on tour. But as the chair of ICSOM, what are your thoughts about how you've changed history and where you are now, given where the organization was 20, 30 years ago?
Well, it's truly humbling to have the honor of serving as chair of such a historic institution. And the book you refer to by Julie Ayer is called More Than Meets the Ear.
Yes.
How symphony musicians made labor history. And I'd encourage you all to find a copy of this book, especially young people coming into the field. I find that in our orchestras, I'm constantly invigorated by the mix of the new players and the more tenured players. And I think that the new players have a tremendous amount to learn from the more tenured players. And of course, I'm inspired by the energy that comes into the orchestra for these things. But when I look back, what everyone needs to understand is that a lot of the benefits that we just take for granted today didn't exist and only came into being because of ICSOM. Before ICSOM, symphony musicians had no say in the negotiation of their contracts whatsoever. Musicians would show up for work, and on the bulletin board would be the new contract that the local president and the symphony manager had negotiated overnight. And the musicians had virtually no say in that. So the people who understood their workplace and understood the problems of the workplace didn't have say in what was needed there. ICSOM fought for that right. And now, in that time, there are now full-time 52-week orchestras. Salaries have gone up tremendously. And the opportunity to build a career and take care of your family as you seek to serve the families of your city are just so much greater than they ever were.
Has ICSOM's role been primarily at helping orchestras negotiate their contracts with their own management, or has it been representing symphony musicians to the AFM? What do you think?
It's been both. It's really been both. Of course, most of our contracts are negotiated on a local level, and we provide any suggestions, education, materials that could be used in the process of those negotiations. We also have phone calls, and the network of communication that exists is really critical for all of us. But also on the national level, there are still national media contracts, and ICSOM plays a role in those negotiations. And in all cases, the primary purpose of ICSOM was to advocate within the union. It's just that the success that we've seen there has led naturally to creating a different opportunity for ICSOM to become even a stronger advocacy group throughout the country.
Why don't you introduce our viewers to the other members of your governing board who come from other orchestras throughout the country?
It's an incredible group of people. I'm the luckiest person in the world to have the privilege to work with the ICSOM governing board. It's made up of musicians from all budget ranges within ICSOM. And they're
which starts where, roughly? 7-8 million up to the top?
Yeah, well, I say more around 5 million up to the highest of the orchestras. They're the most dedicated servants of the field, and what they give of themselves so selflessly is just absolutely incredible. It inspires me on a daily basis. There is the president. Now, this is something that's always interesting. There are traditional titles in ICSOM.
Exactly.
There's a chairman or a chairperson, and then there's a president. And
I was vice president of ROPA when Dave Angus was president of ICSOM, but we always sat together when we had the joint conferences, which confused everybody because...
That's right. It's always been a source of confusion,
exactly.
but in this particular case, we work together so closely.
So you're the chair.
I'm the chair.
And Brian is the president.
Brian Rood
Yep.
of the Kansas City Symphony is the president. Then there's Laura Ross, who's the secretary from the Nashville Symphony. Then there's Michael Moore, treasurer from Atlanta. The editor of Senza Sordino is Richard Levine from San Diego. And then we have members at large that serve. We divide the orchestras up so they have a more immediate contact to the governing board.
So each orchestra is assigned a member at large?
That's right,
Okay.
that's right. And it's Kathy Payne from San Francisco, Meredith Snow from the Los Angeles Philharmonic, Paul Gunther from the Minnesota Orchestra, and Matt Comerford from the Chicago Lyric Orchestra.
And what are the duties of the members at large?
Basically, they're a conduit of information from the delegates to the governing board. Of course, they're all welcome to call me directly anytime, and they do.
I'm sure.
And that's the best part about the job. It's true. I tend to get about 100 emails a day, and so
ICSOM related?
ICSOM related
My
emails.
goodness.
So, but I love it. I love hearing from my colleagues, but the members at large will help us spread information sometimes in a faster way, and it's just another avenue for the delegates to make sure that the delegates feel that they have one-on-one connection with the governing board, so we can know what their concerns are, if there's a difficulty in their orchestra that we can help with.